Chosen one, listen closely. This didn't just pop up on your screen by chance. You're here because something bigger has been calling you. And today is your reminder. You've been through storms that try to take you out, walked through seasons nobody else could have survived. And yet, you're still here. Not just here, but rising, becoming, carrying something the world desperately needs. You might not feel ready. You might not see it yet, but heaven already stamped you as necessary. You are not ordinary. You are not overlooked. You are not late. You are exactly on time for what was written with your name on it. So before we go deeper, take a breath and let that sink in. You are that one. The one who refuses to quit. The one who carries light in dark places. The one who was built for this moment. And because you're here, it means you're ready to unlock another level. Ready to stop doubting. Ready to stop shrinking. Ready to step fully into who you were born to be. If this is hitting your spirit right now, drop a 55 in the chat. Share this with someone who needs a reminder. And lean in. Because what's coming next isn't just words. It's a wake-up call to the greatness that's already inside you. Let's go. Looking for purpose and peace? Hit subscribe and start the journey. The journey has etched marks into the soul that others could not perceive. Nights full of invisible battles, quiet endurance, and unseen resilience have all left their imprint. Not as scars to be hidden, but as symbols of strength unspoken. What appeared as missteps or losses were not without intention. Each obstacle, each silence, each turn that seemed to lead nowhere was a deliberate part of the shaping, carrying meaning far beyond comfort or convenience. No abandonment took place in those shadows. Rather, there was a crafting, precise and patient, not aimed at a distant future, nor at what you once expected, but specifically for this very chapter. What felt like fracture was a careful opening, so that authenticity could take root. What seemed like loneliness was actually training, a way to attune to quiet guidance amid a crowded, clamoring world. What looked like delay was, in reality, deep construction, instilling patience that does not falter when answers seem far away. Even the bitter lessons of betrayal served as a gentle stripping away of what could not accompany the next ascent. After seasons of hidden work, pressure, dismantling, rebuilding, and silent growth, what remains is not a diminished version but a refined one, resilient, spiritually awake, rooted, and aligned with something eternal. The person who stands here now is no longer the one who began this path. While some attachments have been surrendered, discernment has grown in their place. While some familiar spaces no longer fit, new vision has unfolded. Reactions have softened into wisdom. Ambition has transformed into a quiet confidence that favors depth over display. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. This present self does not emerge shattered, but strengthened by a fire that purified rather than consumed. Not lagging behind, but perfectly timed, positioned precisely where meant to be. Not forgotten, not bypassed, but entrusted with a specific place in this moment. This presence is no accident. It is an intentional answer to the needs of this hour, capable of carrying weight, influence, and light through trials, battles, and glory yet to unfold. What was cultivated in private is now ready to be revealed. This unveiling carries significance beyond personal triumph. It is an echo of a larger purpose. So step forward with clarity, speak with intention, move with certainty. This whole, humbled, transformed self is exactly what is required in the tapestry of what is happening now. Refined, ready, and relevant to what is unfolding. Some thresholds cannot be crossed by the person you once were. That earlier self was fragile in ways you didn't recognize, clinging to illusions of safety, unsure of its own reflection, hesitating to claim spaces that were already meant to be inhabited, bargaining for love through effort, and settling for what seemed within reach because the expanse of destiny hadn't yet come into focus. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. What existed then was infatuated with being noticed, but what exists now seeks harmony. That former self ran after approval, but this one listens for an inner resonance. The earlier version wilted at closed gates, doubted itself when storms arrived, retreated under scrutiny. But the terrain before you now demands an unwavering core, a steady rhythm, a resolve that endures even when every outward signal suggests retreat. So the breaking came, not to scatter you, but to dismantle the scaffolding that couldn't hold the weight of where you're going. That identity was shaped by shifting eyes, constantly recalibrating to rejection, asking directions from voices never meant to guide the path. It had its moment, but it was never built to sustain the elevation waiting beyond. Now everything has changed. There's no desperation to be seen, because the concealment was part of the shaping. Fear no longer commands you because you've endured enough silence to discover who has always been present. Emotions no longer dictate the course, because the foundation is deeper than mood or moment. This self no longer lashes out at opposition, but reads the undercurrent. It no longer grasps at acknowledgement, but moves with quiet certainty. It no longer competes for scraps, but carries its own atmosphere, not from ego, but from essence. That old self would have unraveled under this intensity, squandered the chance, mishandled the trust. But this one has been tempered, refined in hiddenness, cultivated through pauses, and made ready to bear the fullness of what is here now. The unseen seasons fortified the character before unveiling the calling. So give gratitude for the self that dissolved. It carried you as far as it could, and honor what stands here now, steady, whole, unafraid, because this is the one who was always meant to rise to this moment, equipped, rooted, and precisely formed for what could only unfold now. Every fragment of the path holds purpose. The sequence of moments, unpredictable, imperfect, yet precise, was never accidental. Every pause, every unexpected turn, every long wait was a calculated design, a hidden architecture working silently beneath the surface. Nothing endured was wasted. Even the most unassuming seasons carried instruction. What looked like collapse was actually construction. What seemed like chaos was quiet preparation, fashioning not just a story but a storyteller, one who embodies wisdom, carries compassion, and walks with quiet strength. This journey was never meant to be recited like a script. It was meant to be lived so fully that every word spoken carries the weight of lived truth. That's why shortcuts were never an option, why ease was withheld, why hardship became a companion, for the sake of depth, for the sake of insight no theory could produce. Every wound became a lens to see others beyond appearances. Every disappointment sharpened the ability to hold silence without judgment. Every collapse planted humility in the soil of the heart. Every mark became a reminder of the delicate balance between honesty and mercy. Now, each memory is a blade forged in fire, a tool shaped for this moment. Words spoken are no longer empty. They emerge from the forge of transformation. Presence no longer feels like performance. It radiates from healing. When stepping forward now, the room shifts, not because of noise, but because of quiet authority. Change happens without striving. Vision cuts through fog without force, and the atmosphere bends because of time spent in hidden places beyond reach of applause. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. This strength does not come from flawless choices, but from choosing to stay when escape was easier. What was endured in silence has become proof of trustworthiness. That willingness to keep going even through the ache became the qualification. And now the very sound of the voice carries echoes of freedom, awakening what lay dormant in others, stirring potential buried under resignation. This presence no longer drifts untethered. It is anchored deep. It no longer schemes the surface, but draws from the roots. It does not timidly whisper where it must roar against shadows. It was shaped where no one was watching, strengthened where no one could intervene, formed where no cheering could reach. Now it no longer guesses at its belonging, it knows. So let the story unfold without concealment. Don't diminish it. It holds more than memories. It holds a map for others. It holds more than pain. It holds the path through it. This narrative carries fingerprints of intention everywhere. What began as survival has become strategy, and the time has come to discover just how powerful that truly is. What stands here today no longer hesitates. There was a season when presence was muted, when brightness was dimmed to keep others comfortable, when truth was swallowed to avoid unsettling the room. There was a time when rising felt like rebellion, when the heart waited for some external signal to fully step into what had already been declared within. But that time has passed. Now it is clear that this authority was never loaned by people. It was planted from beyond. No permission is required. The steps taken now are not powered by pride but by purpose. Each move is deliberate, not to attract eyes but to fulfill intention. There is no apology for being here, no shrinking back, no quiet retreat, because what has been embedded cannot be undone if your heart overflows with divine love. Now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. For such a time as this. Esther 4 verse 14. You know, I like to think of it like an oak tree in a quiet field. For years, nobody notices it much. It starts out as just a seed in the dirt, buried, hidden, overlooked. But what's happening underground is what makes it unshakable when the storms finally come. That's how God works with you too. You may have felt buried, but you were being planted. You may have felt overlooked, but you were being established. You may have felt small, but all along, you were growing deep roots that would carry you through anything. This current self no longer whispers timidly, "Will I fail?" but stands tall in the knowing, "I was formed for this." Not because the road was easy or the answers showed up overnight, but because letting go of the need to figure it all out gave you the courage to keep walking forward anyway. That surrender carved a path for boldness that doesn't puff itself up, strength that doesn't push others down, and influence that stays tied to integrity, like branches anchored to a sturdy trunk. Now, when you speak, your words don't come from a place of insecurity. They flow from a place of peace, because you already know who's backing you. When you act, it's not about proving yourself anymore. It's about honoring the one who brought you this far. When you pray, it carries weight, because it's not a ritual. It's a conversation with someone you've come to trust in the hardest seasons of your life. When you lead, it's not about control, but vision that refuses to fade, even when circumstances try to block your view. That kind of confidence doesn't come from titles. It doesn't come from applause or accolades or a corner office. No, that kind of confidence is born in the quiet spaces, when you stayed faithful even though nobody was watching, when you stayed kind when it would have been easier to lash out, when you kept your heart right even though you had every reason to get bitter. Elevation didn't show up because you were perfect. It showed up because you were persistent. See, the blessing was never about earning points. It was about enduring pressure without cracking. Those long nights you cried, those days you wanted to give up but didn't. That was you proving you could carry what God was building in you. And while others were trying to force doors open, yours swung wide on their own, not because of charm, but because of quiet faithfulness that moved heaven on your behalf. And now, when your voice speaks, the atmosphere starts to shift, not because you're loud, but because what you've walked through has given your words substance. People don't just hear what you say. They feel what you carry, not the heaviness of ego, but the weight of someone who has walked through the fire and came out refined. This presence doesn't try to persuade anymore. It simply lives in the truth it already knows. It doesn't scramble to prove worth, because worth was settled a long time ago. It doesn't flinch when resistance shows up, because it remembers all the other battles it already survived. What's beautiful is that nothing about this journey was wasted, not the tears, not the waiting, not the setbacks. Every single season, yes, even the ones you thought broke you, actually built you. Like that oak tree, what was growing underground the whole time was preparing you for storms that would have snapped you in two if you hadn't gone through what you went through. Now you stand here with deep roots, able to withstand winds others can't handle, able to provide shade for those who are weary, able to bear fruit in places others thought were barren. You're not trying to impress anymore. You're trying to bless. You're not trying to dominate rooms. You're trying to deliver what you were given to carry. And can I tell you something? That quiet faithfulness has made you dangerous in the best kind of way. Dangerous to doubt, dangerous to fear, dangerous to the lies that told you you'd never make it this far. You're no longer reacting, you're responding. You're no longer begging, you're declaring. You're no longer hoping God shows up. You're walking like you already know He has. That's why your words now have power, not because of fancy phrases or big speeches, but because you lived every line before you spoke it. That's why your presence has authority, not because of a spotlight, but because of the time you spent with God when no one was clapping, no one was watching, no one was encouraging you but Him. You've been through enough to know by now. You don't have to chase approval. You don't have to compete for attention. You don't have to shrink so others feel comfortable. You don't have to wait for permission. You already have it. You already carry something this world desperately needs. You already have a story that sets others free. You already embody the answers to prayers you don't even know were prayed generations before you. So don't you dare hang your head anymore. Don't you dare talk yourself out of stepping into rooms you were born to transform. Don't you dare question if you're enough. You're more than enough because He is more than enough in you. And listen, this isn't just about you. It never was. This is about the lives your obedience will touch, the people who will see your courage and find their own, the atmospheres you'll change just by walking in the door. You've been through too much to play small now. You've survived too much to hide now. You've grown too much to shrink back now. God already knew what He was doing when He picked you. He already saw every flaw and every failure and still decided, that one, that's who I'll use. So walk like you're chosen. Speak like you're sent. Live like you're loved, because you are. And when the doubts come knocking, and they will, just remember, you've already been through worse and came out stronger. You've already stood when you thought you'd fall. You've already seen doors open no one else could unlock. You're still here. You're still standing. And you're just getting started. So go ahead and rise. Go ahead and speak. Go ahead and lead. Not because you're perfect, but because you're ready. This is your time. This is your moment. This is your assignment. And you were made for it. Rooms are entered differently now. Not to overpower, but to fulfill a mission. Leading no longer arises from constructed image, but from unshakable identity. This self does not shout to be noticed. It speaks because it must. Each step, each breath, each choice radiates a purpose that no one can erase. Walk forward, stand firm, move with clarity. What backs you is greater than what opposes you, and the authority in you is unshakable. Some lives don't just move forward, they redirect the entire current. What stands here today isn't simply mending personal wounds, but unraveling old knots tied long before birth. Every choice toward healing, every refusal to repeat the familiar, every moment when growth outweighed comfort has quietly rewritten what was assumed unchangeable. This isn't just about survival, it's about dismantling what no longer belongs. A fracture became a doorway. What once moved silently through the generations, fear disguised as caution, silence passed down like heirlooms, chaos masquerading as normalcy, met its match here. Where there was once surrender to the inevitable, now stands defiance. Where rebellion once scattered seeds in anger, now steadiness plants roots in wisdom. Where apathy once muted voices, now courage speaks and rebuilds what crumbled. Hidden in the family tree were dreams left half drawn, talents buried under layers of shame and hesitation, possibilities swallowed by grief and resignation. But now resurrection rises through these hands. Every step taken forward honors the quiet hopes of those who could only dream but never see. What was fractured is now pieced together into something stronger than before, reaching backward to soothe and forward to anchor what comes next. What emerges here no longer conforms to patterns, simply because they are familiar. What remains refuses to bow to dysfunction dressed as tradition. What endures does not simply navigate the storms, but stills them, creating calm where chaos was once assumed permanent. When challenges rise, this presence does not retreat. It steadies, reshaping the atmosphere itself. Perhaps that is why the journey was so relentless, why the nights felt so heavy, because the weight carried here isn't just personal, it's generational. The opposition was never only against one person. It sought to silence a lineage, but it miscalculated, never expecting such resolve to stand in its path. What rises now becomes the answer to long-forgotten prayers, the fulfillment of quiet pleas for change, the one who completes what others could not. This presence doesn't merely endure, it shifts everything it touches. It does not carry old chains, but wears the mantle of something entirely new. It doesn't continue the story as it was written. It pens a new chapter entirely. The legacy ahead no longer reflects what once was. It mirrors what was fought for. The cycle ends here, and something unimagined begins. What you embody now cannot be mistaken for ordinary. There is something in the way you move, speak, and decide that refuses to mirror the noise around you. From the first breath, an unseen seal was set upon your path, marking you not as flawed but as intentional. That mark was never meant to be hidden, never meant to imitate the patterns of what surrounds you. You were not placed here to echo what already exists, but to bring forth what is yet to be heard. This presence does not drift aimlessly. It follows a rhythm others cannot hear. Your senses are tuned to subtler frequencies, perceiving truth beneath layers of disguise. Your decisions are not measured by convenience, but by alignment to a higher plan. Every conviction, every quiet refusal, every act of integrity becomes a signal that you carry something beyond yourself. While some run after applause, you pursue illumination. While others mirror the crowd, you articulate what silence cannot. Darkness does not absorb you because you do not belong to it. You radiate a clarity born in the secret places. Your mere arrival unsettles spaces where authenticity has been absent. You do not enter simply to participate. You arrive to recalibrate what has grown dull. Every step is a response to something larger, a quiet answer to confusion, a gentle disruption to apathy, a steadfast reminder that light still speaks. When fear freezes others in place, you walk steady and calm. When anxiety consumes the room, you carry a quiet fire that does not falter. When compromise tempts many, you remain grounded in what cannot be bargained. You stand not as proof of your own strength, but as evidence that humility and courage can coexist. Your choices reflect a loyalty to something beyond human ambition. What you carry now is not swayed by moods or public praise. It draws from something deeper. You no longer question your belonging. You know it. You weren't preserved just to be comfortable. You were shaped to alter the atmosphere wherever you're planted. This transformation was never about being admired, but about being entrusted. You became trustworthy through silence, through testing, through refining, until what you carried could be worn with grace and not arrogance. Through you, the heart of what has been forgotten becomes visible again. Compassion in a world hardened by cynicism, order in a time of chaos, sacredness in an age of distraction. Not because you chose this path, but because you were born for it. The noise outside does not dictate your steps. You remain tuned to the instructions that never waver. And as long as that alignment remains, no barrier can withstand what was meant to unfold through you. This is no longer the season of hiding, the time of holding back, of folding into corners to avoid unsettling others, of waiting for someone else to declare your worth has come to an end. There was a necessary quiet in the past, a sacred stillness while the foundation was being laid. But that chapter has closed. What was concealed is now being unveiled. What stands here emerged through unseen seasons, tempered in solitude, carved by storms, strengthened in silence. This is the unrestrained form, the one assembled in the shadows when no eyes were watching, the one shaped at your lowest, whispered to when you doubted, expanded, stripped down, and made holy for this very moment. It was built in places no celebration could reach, so that no one else could claim the credit. What was once hidden now becomes undeniable, not for applause, but for fulfillment. This unveiling isn't about admiration, it's about assignment. The light shining now is not to impress, but to illuminate what was always meant to be seen. You thought you needed more time, but the timing has already arrived. You wondered if you were ready, but readiness was woven into your bones in the wilderness. You doubted your place, but this place was waiting for you all along. This is not a flawless form, but a faithful one. Not without scars, but full of purpose. Not complete, yet fully capable. Even in your becoming, there is radiance. You carry clarity others can't ignore, wisdom earned in silence, a presence that unsettles darkness, a legacy that reshapes futures. The sound of your name now echoes, not a suggestion, but as a call. No more hesitating at the threshold. No more retreating out of habit. Readiness isn't a feeling to chase, it's a truth to embrace. The world has been waiting for what only you carry. The cadence of your voice, the story written in your steps, the fire lodged in your spirit. Not just meaningful, necessary. What tried to undo you now becomes the very proof of your authority. You rise now not out of ambition, but because clarity compels you. You are a bearer of light, a breaker of patterns, a keeper of promises, not because you demanded it, but because you were crafted for it. Step into this form, not with vanity but with certainty, not with timidity but with resolve, not to be admired but to be deployed. This is not who you were. This is not who they expected. This is the version of you forged to stand here, the answer to quiet prayers, the one who would not be erased, the one who refused to remain undone.